Behind me is the Titan Fitness T2 Power Rack, and after 2 years, it's finally gotta get the hell out of my garage. Welcome back to Texas Flex. I'm Mike Hernandez, and today, first and foremost, if you guys aren't subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We finally made it to 500 subscribers, but get this, there's not a whole lot of you guys watching. So if you could just watch the video or let it play, like it, of course, as always, and comment below what type of content you guys are wanting to watch. Really, I'm still trying to kind of find my niche, or even just what I want to shoot. So if you guys suggest it, more than likely, I'll make it. All right, with that being said, let's get to the topic at hand. I don't think I illustrated myself well enough, but what I really want to talk about today is what rack you should pick and how it should be set up in your garage gym. As you can see right now, my rack is set up next to the garage door. And unfortunately, I kind of already knew this, but I kind of wanted to mess around with the setup or the layout of my gym, if you will. And so I put it there for the time being. Now I know for sure 100%, and again, I kind of knew this already, but it does not belong there. For how frequently I do squats and how heavy I tend to go relative to my own strength, it just can't go there. The slope, while extremely minimal, and I don't know what it is, but I know it's there just because things tend to roll, it's just not doable, right? At some point, which was today for me, it will catch up to you, and it's best case scenario, just a small muscle spasm, like, I don't know how to describe it. It was kind of like a cramp a little bit, but definitely a signal that I listened to and just said, you know what? I did 2 pretty good sets of squats. We can back off from here. Work on technique as soon as we move it back to where, you know, I think is most level and have seen good progress with my squat. And then from there, we'll reassess, you know, how much weight I can do in that specific space, because I have been squatting here for a specific amount of time, a pretty prolonged amount of time. Actually, I've hit some PRs here as well. So if any imbalances were made, I pretty much have to backtrack on that. And that's something that a lot of people don't actually think about, right? Especially if you're not, and I know this word is relative, but that strong or squat that frequently. You know, these things aren't gonna matter so much, but if you do, then they're just gonna pile on and pile on. So it's definitely something to consider. And that brings me to the quality of your piece, okay? Or your rack, I should say. That really is going to matter. And for the longest time, I didn't think it did, because most of the racks that we have at LA Fitness, that's where I work as a personal trainer, they're not that great. They're actually kind of crappy. Sometimes I even prefer my T2. If I'm just doing like squats that day, I prefer to squat here, and maybe it's the vibe, but I prefer to squat here rather than LA Fitness that has like commercial quality equipment, which by the way, is pretty much just like saying it's military grade. It's in the military, but it's just a piece of crap that can take a beating. Anyway, the quality of your rack is really gonna matter. Again, based on the frequency of how often you use it and the intensity at which you're, you know, working out to meet that level of rack. Just because this is, I think it's like 800 pound capacity power rack, doesn't, you know, lay out all the factors that you would really want to think about. You want to think about the hole spacing, right? That's probably the one that comes to everybody's mind. How many holes are there? How will it adjust to my body size and where I'm going to need the J-cups? And, you know, how versatile is it? How many exercises will I be able to space out for myself on this rack? But the one thing that I think a lot of people don't matter is the build of the rack itself, right? While it says it's 800 pounds in capacity or 1,000 pounds, I honestly forget what this T2 is. I think a lot of it demonstrates like how much you can actually do with it and how well equipped you're gonna be. For example, and this is kind of what brings this conversation up, the posts on the front, perfectly fine. Completely aligned, it looks good, feels great. The post on the back though, one is actually missing a hole on the bottom. And so the space in between the bottom and the first hole is 14 inches on the left, and on the right, you have a 12-inch space. So at first, you would think that this doesn't matter, but it does, because the spacing of the holes is aligned to the first, or to the holes in between. So if you have one that's missing, or even just a little off, you can pretty much assume that the whole rack is just messed up. And this was highlighted to me because I put safety spotters on the rack, and as I was squatting, one side kept hitting the other side, or the safety spotter, a lot more than the other side. And yeah, I know I don't have like impeccable technique or whatever, but I do have pretty solid technique. And so when I started to hit it over and over and over again, even when I shifted them down according to the one hole spacing that was missing, I was still hitting this side very, very often. So that leads me to believe that there's going to be more of a space in between. And if you're hitting that safety spotter more than not, and you're doing high reps, man, that is really going to throw you off, even if it's strength. Way to compare this to, but when you're walking out and you hit the post, not a great feeling, right? And it kind of messes your whole squat up. So that's pretty much the same thing, except now you're in the middle of the squat, and this is debatably the hardest part of the squat, and this is when you hit the safety spotter arms. Not super, super great. And that being the last hole that I can put it in with the weight posts, attached. Whew, man, that was a grinder, and I'm pretty sure that's what led to that muscle spasm in my quad. And I've got to tell you, if I just kept going, if I was like that dude that was, I got to give it 100% intensity or nothing, I could have probably gotten injured. So at the end of the day, I'd say look for those few things that I highlighted. I'm sure there's a ton more, but just for today's video's sake, that's the ones I wanted to highlight, right? The position of your rack within your garage, if it's level, if it's not level, how do you compensate? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure there's other videos out there. For me, I'm just gonna move it to the center where it's pretty damn level. And two, the quality of your rack. Just because it's budget and just because it holds a certain amount of weight, does it actually mean that it'll assist you as well as possible? Because at the end of the day, safety is paramount. And if you don't have safety, then you're pretty much throwing out the one thing that everybody should be chasing, and that is longevity. Okay? I know it's corny as hell, but it is what it is. You don't want to do this for just a specific or allotted amount of time. You want to do this for as long as you can. So with that, if you guys have questions, leave them in the comments below. Any suggestions for a new power rack would be appreciated. And until next time, I will see you guys at the next flex.